What type of lift is best for my Jeep? Now, this is a very common question that's asked by beginners. Why? Because the lift is usually where they want to start with their build process. Now, whether we're talking about a full-size truck, we're talking about a little Cherokee, Wrangler, Gladiator, or heaven forbid, a Bronco. Yuck. But why is this question so hard to answer? Well, it's because there are so many different factors that are involved. All right, you've got what size lift do we want to do? How much money do we want to spend? Are we talking about ground clearance or just tire size? What brand should we be looking at? What type of performance is going to be the best when it comes to a lift? What is better than the other? What type of shocks do I need? Do I need control arms? Do I need, what? I could go on and on and on. When trying to answer this question on what is the best lift for my Jeep, for beginners, this initial investment and the options that are out there can just seem incredibly overwhelming. So I am going to make this so simple. There are only 3 things you really need to focus on before buying your lift. Yes, there's a bunch more things to consider, but these 3 things will set you down the correct path for the appropriate lift for your Jeep. Let's make this super simple. You ready? Let's go. Now, as I promised, there are 3 things that is going to make your life so easy and so simple when you're looking to buy your Jeep. But before we get into that, I just want to give a shout out and a big thank you to all the support that we've had on the channel. We just recently passed 1,300 subscribers, and I thank you so much for that. Our goal for 2022 by the end of this year is to make it to 2,500. So if you're watching this and you're brand new, why not subscribe? There is a ton of education and all kinds of adventures on Jeeping for Beginners that you can't go wrong. So like the video and subscribe. Anyways, let's continue. So on our list, there are 3 things that you need to focus on. The first one I want you to consider is what size tires do you want to run on your Jeep? Now, it is a common misconception that the lift itself is going to give you better ground clearance. That's not true. It's actually the size of the tires that you run that determine the ground clearance on your vehicle. So what size tire do you want to run? Here's a rule of thumb. For every 1 inch in diameter that you go up in tire size, it usually equates to about 1.5 inches when it comes to the total size of the lift that you're going to need. Now, here's a couple of examples. On the JK Wranglers, the factory tire size is 32. Now, the maximum tire size you can fit on that Jeep before actually having to modify the suspension is 33 inch. So if you wanted to put, let's say, 35 inch tires on it, you're talking 2 more inches on the overall diameter of that tire, which would equate to about a 3-inch suspension lift. Now, the JLs and the JTs, they're a little bit bigger. The factory tire size is roughly about 33 inch, but the maximum tire size that you could actually fit on those without having to modify the suspension is 35 already. Trust me, we've done it multiple times. 35s will fit. So if you're looking at lifting a JL, you got to ask yourself, what size tires do I want to run? So let's say 37s are your ultimate goal. Well, once again, that's 2 inches larger in diameter than what can fit on the Jeep, which translates, you got it, into about a 3-inch lift. Okay, so that puts us at very quick and easy math. About 1.5 inches of a suspension lift equates to every 1 inch larger in diameter that you go on your tires. Now, some of the older Jeeps start out with much smaller tires, and yes, sports and Rubicons clear different sizes straight out the gate, and 2 doors lift differently than 4 doors, but you know what? We're not going to get into that. We're simply talking a basic, simple rule of thumb. Here's the second thing that you need to consider before you shop for or purchase the lift on your Jeep is, what are you ultimately going to use it for? Now, is this something that you're trying to scale the largest obstacles every single time you get the opportunity? Or do you simply want it to look meaner when you go to Starbucks for your coffee in the morning? Yes, there is a lot of hatred for mall crawlers, okay? But this is a serious question. You need to honestly answer for yourself. What are you looking to accomplish with this lift? Is it just a look? Or are you ultimately trying to get some off-road performance out of the product? So here's why we ask that question. When you start shopping for a lift, you're going to start seeing terms you may not recognize. Things like progressive rate, dual rate, triple rate when we're talking about springs, or you're going to see terms like hydro, gas, monotube, twin tube, variable valve, reservoir, all these terms when you're looking at shocks. Okay, now it can be extremely overwhelming, and I am not going to sit here and dive into what each and every single one of these terms mean. Here are the basics of what you need to know. Your standard rate springs, progressive rate springs, these are your look lifts, okay? They are not designed to do anything other than lift the vehicle so you can clear bigger tires. They can't handle the extra load or weight of carrying, let's say, heavy steel bumpers, your winch, your off-road recovery, all your gear. They can't handle that, okay? They are there just for the look of getting you a lifted vehicle so you can clear your bigger tires. Off-road, they're going to tend to maybe bend, sag, or even fail on you a lot faster than other lifts will, because you would actually be using it outside of what they are designed or intended to do. Your other terms, such as dual rate, triple rate, variable rate, or so on and so forth, when it comes to springs, these are going to handle a crap ton better off-road. However, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of on-road ride quality. Now, here's what I mean by that. They tend to be stiffer. They tend to be a little bit stronger, okay? But they're also designed to carry that extra weight. Your solid steel bumpers, your winch, your off-road recovery tools, 4 extra people in the Jeep. They are designed to carry that weight and still perform like they're supposed to off-road. So, what are you looking to do? Now, the shocks can play a huge part in this. Cheaping out on the shocks, even if you go with a nice triple rate or dual rate spring, can still adversely affect your on-road ride quality. Shocks is where you get the comfort. So your hydro assist, your monotube, your cheap shocks are going to give you just that. They're going to give you a cheap, harsh ride. Your more expensive shocks, like your variable valve shocks, your racing shocks, or even your coilover shocks or reservoir shocks, these are going to give you a much better on-road feel, and they're even going to help your off-road performance. All right, so as a beginner, ask yourself, what are you going to be using this Jeep or this lift for? If it is strictly a pavement princess and legitimately going to be just a daily driver, and there's nothing wrong with that, you don't necessarily need to spend a ton of money on a high performance off-road built suspension system. But if your rig is going to be more than a weekend warrior and it is planning on seeing more off-road time than most, then definitely consider a higher performance when it comes to your suspension system. In my opinion, dual rate springs and variable valve shocks, that is the way to go for somebody who uses it off-road. Trust me, there is a big difference in the way that they perform. So now let's talk about the last thing that you need to consider before purchasing your lift, and that is your budget. Now, you've already chosen the size tire that you want to run, which has led you to the size lift that you need to purchase. You've also decided what the purpose of this lift and this tire combination is going to be. So, how much do you spend? Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly what the right price is. That's something you need to decide for yourself. Instead, I'm going to help you figure it out. You ready? All right, so here's the rule of thumb before determining your budget. Money buys quality, period. Every time. So let me give you a little bit of an analogy. Okay, you need a new pair of shoes. So you go to Walmart, you spend 20 bucks on sale on a pair of kicks that, you know what, they look pretty good. They're brand new, they're initially comfortable, and you're happy with them. After a couple of weeks, they're already starting to show signs of wear. They're already beginning to get uncomfortable. After a couple of months, you're like, you know what, I don't think I really like these shoes, and I think I need to go get another set. Or you go to Foot Locker, start off from the beginning, you buy pair of Nikes, 160 bucks. After a couple of years wearing those shoes, you realize, you know what, they still look pretty damn good and they're comfortable. So which one is the better buy? All right, folks, so I know it seems a little cheesy, but the same concept applies for pretty much anything that you purchase, even the lift for your Jeep. A cheap lift is going to give you a cheap lift. Okay, so once you've decided on the purpose of your lift and the purpose of your build, then you need to shop in the range that fulfills that purpose. Educate yourself just a little bit. When you're shopping, look for the components in that lift that are going to do what you are looking for that lift to do. If that requires you mentally to increase the budget you were originally planning on spending, then so be it. In fact, if your budget originally was way too high and you can get away with something a lot less expensive, then great. But either way, shop for the performance that you're looking for, not for the price point that you're looking for. I know a lot of people are going to ask about brands. What's the best brand that's out there? Is Rough Country better than TerraFlex? Is BDS the way to go? Should I get a Super Lift, or should I go with Fox Racing or Mopar? And you know what? We're really not going to get into all that. Every company that designs a lift for your Jeep does so with something else in mind. What you need to do is align what you're looking for with the company that is going to provide the lift to accomplish what it is that you're looking to do. If you do have any questions specific to anything that I've just said over the last couple of minutes, feel free to put it down in the comments below. I will certainly get to it just as quick as I can, I promise. Okay, so let's review just a little bit. Once you determine your tire size, you determine what kind of performance you're looking to get out of your lift, and you determine your budget. Is that all that you need to know? No, there's a bunch of other questions that you're going to ask as you go along. But truthfully, once you figure out those three things specifically, and the rest of it kind of all just falls into place, and you end up getting exactly what it is that you're looking for. All right, guys, so here's a little bit of bonus information, and this is for those of you who decided to stick this video out quite this far. We've talked a lot about 3 inches for the lift. Now, there's a reason that I stopped there. If you go over 3 inches for any reason whatsoever, there are so many other things to consider, like extending your brake lines, extending your drive line, replacing your track bar or steering and other components up front, and that can get real expensive really fast. If you are a first timer, a beginner, which is what this channel is dedicated to, I would highly recommend sticking to 3 inches or less on your first lift. Get to know it. Get some experience and some confidence under your belt. Remember, they can be changed and modified as time goes on. That's what we do. But you don't want to start out with a headache or overreaching, overextending past your budget, or overextending past what it is you're truly trying to accomplish. So, great rule of thumb, a little bit of bonus information. I'd stick to 3 inches or less for your very first lift, and then kind of go from there. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully this video answers some questions for you. It didn't actually, I don't know, raise a bunch more. But you know what? If it did, don't hesitate to put that down in the comments down below, and I'll certainly get to them just as quick as I can, I promise. In the meantime, don't forget to like the video. And hey, you know what? If you're new here, why not subscribe to the channel? Once again, we're trying to hit a goal of 2,500 subscribers by the end of 2022. And on this channel, there is so much to learn and so many adventures to be had. In fact, I think that little subscribe button is just right about there. I think it's right about there. Of course, that's on most devices, unless, of course, you're watching this on TV. So, in the meantime, stay safe, happy Jeeping, and we will see you next time.